make sure you're fit for human
It
consumption.
says it's...
You put the line.
It says it's working.
Probably is.
It says it's working. I still haven't done it this way enough to know if it is.
I've got a notification. There's been a notification. So you are working.
Oh, where's my, where does it show me?
You have to go to live.
Oh, live, that's right. There it is.
Damn, it should beat me again.
And click it, or can I just go right to the chat? No, I have to click it and turn off the volume. And
How is this lady beating me?
hello, everyone, all those hundreds of thousands of people out there.
There are hundreds of thousands of people out there.
I know. Oh, the chat's right here. But I've got to bring the chat out. There it is. Moderate activity.
Oh.
I don't want to moderate activity.
No?
I don't know how to, I don't know why it's not.
That's your, hold on, I can't see. Keep going down. Oh, you've got live chat, so go back up. And then there's your 3 dots next to the X.
Yeah, but it's not letting me pop it out. Oh, there it is now. Okay, I guess that wasn't coming up.
It just needed me to be staring at it. You know how it does that sometimes.
Okay, so how do I know if there's anybody here?
What do you mean?
I mean, with the YouTube page, I can tell if somebody's there. I'm going to do the stream anyway, but usually someone shows up.
There's 3 people here.
I'm still getting used to this.
And I guess old school Dave's not here because he would have said, hey.
I've got a like already. All right, cool.
should
4
have
watching.
4.
Okay, that's all I needed to know.
And you should have 4 likes. 6.
I only have 1 like.
But see, on here you have 6.
I guess it's slow for this to update.
Ow. Casey's here.
Hello, Casey. So that picture is of Pons Brooks Comet. 12P, I think they call it, another part of the name, official name.
It says Comet West on your thing here.
Oh, it does?
Yeah. Why don't you look at your picture so you can see?
Oh, I didn't fix that page yet. Yeah, right. That's because I'm not going to talk about Comet West right now, because I talked about that the last time I did a Comet stream. So what I'm going to talk about this time is the next comet on the list after Comet West, which was Hale, Bopp, but where the heck is that? Oh, there they are. Okay. There it is. There it is. There it is. And west goes off. Okay, so this is, I've got two pictures of Hale Bopp. And this one, I believe, came from the Hawaii Observatory that they said was that the bright object above the comet was a star. And yet it's got like a, looks like Saturn, because it's got rings of some sort. And it's kind of roundish, and the stars actually look more oblong because they're further away. That's the way the light reacts. So it looks like it's close to Hale Bopp, as opposed to the distance of the stars around it. And when you look at this one, you can see that perspective again. This is from a Japanese observatory, and some of you have seen this already. But the middle brightest object in that screen is Hale Bopp Comet, and it's kind of fuzzy. And to its right, the next biggest object is said to be the companion. Now, I remind you that Doe said that whether there was a companion with Hale Bopp or not was irrelevant, because to them, the Hale Bopp comet was the marker of their timing of their exit. Excuse me.
You don't have water.
Water.
I'll get it.
Well, yes, I do. I have these bottles here,
Oh, yeah.
which I need to use up. Excuse me.
You don't have the chat up?
Hmm?
You don't have the chat up?
Yeah, I do, but I've got to minimize this so I can see it.
You popped it out, so it's behind that.
Yeah, there it is.
And you can make that long, that narrower, right?
Yes,
So
I
you
can.
see it better.
I don't really need to because I don't need to see the rest of the screen. But anyway, so good evening, chat there. And so the second picture of Hale Bopp from the Japanese observatory shows Hale Bopp in the middle, the brightest object, the bottom middle. And to the right of it, from our perspective, is the companion object. And well, it was thought to be the companion object. I can't prove it, of course. So anyway, so then you can see the next brightest objects. There's three, and they look more oblong than the Hale Bopp comet core and the companion object. And then you can see the brightest objects beyond those three are fainter, of course, but they're also thinner, like more oblong. And that has to do with how far away they are in relationship to the way that the light reacts to the camera lens. So, but that gives you a picture of how close that alleged companion object was to Hale Bopp because of its shape from our perspective. And that companion object also has like a black tail, which is another thing that was very unusual. and then when it went behind uh, the sun, from our perspective, because it's not really going behind the sun, it's just from the way the sun faces us. Um, it looked like it went behind the sun, so you couldn't see it. And then when it came out the other side, the Hale-Bopp comet, then there was no sign of what was thought to be the companion object. And so that's why people could say there was no companion object, because they couldn't see it, although the scientists then formed a group that met at least every year. I think it was somewhere in Texas, maybe. I'm not sure exactly where, and then whether they're still meeting. But they became like a Hale-Bopp study society kind of thing. And they actually determined that Hale-Bopp had a dual nucleus. Now, we don't see that because I'm not sure why we don't see it, like in these pictures, the dual nucleus. Maybe at that stage it wasn't able to be distinguished. And maybe it was never able to be distinguished by photographic evidence like this. I'm not sure what they use as their scientific, technical evidence of a dual nucleus in the Hale-Bopp comet. But if you look at some other pictures, like Comet Ison, when it was depixelated, which is not that hard to do if you wonder whether I should have put the before picture here of Comet Ison. That looks just like one big blob, and you can see that around this Ison picture there is like a bunch of light that's like pixelated. So, which is, I guess, when the person who depixelated this, put on some filters to try to see if there was anything else there. I'm not sure how to do that, but they seem to know how to do that. And I got this from BP Earthwatch when he was doing a lot of these kind of images from the space telescopes and the satellite telescopes that were observing these objects, and and they were observed, and the public was able to tune into them even live, even though there's a certain amount of time that lapses because of how far away they are before you actually see what's happening. And so when they depixelated it, it showed up as what looks like three objects that are flying in like a V formation. For anybody that can't actually see this on the screen. And two of those objects were like cigar-shaped. I'm going to say cigar-shaped because that was the terminology used for sightings of spacecrafts in the 1800s, the late 1800s and perhaps the early 1900s. But I know that before the crash of a spacecraft that was recorded as happening in Aurora, Texas, in the downtown Aurora area, where there was supposedly one body found that was buried, and there was a marker on the grave that said something about an alien visitor because he didn't look like, and then that was changed, and they were going to exhume the body, but the stone disappeared, and not disappeared, but just wasn't there anymore when they went to try to find the body, and so they didn't dig anything up. And that was, I think, I forgot the researcher's name who was doing that. Let me think a second. No. Stephen, no. It was, 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 Wasn't Stephen. I almost had it. But if I think of it later, I'll mention it. But you can look up the Aurora UFO sighting, and you'll see a lot of stuff about it. And Wendell Stevens, I think that was the name of the individual who became a researcher into that case, and was seeking to exhume the body to examine whether it was human or alien, if they could be able to tell after it's decayed, right? Maybe you could by the bone structure, because it was said to be like 3.5 or 4 feet tall, and the people that were witnesses at the time said that it didn't look like it was human, and it was partially burned as well, and and it did destroy, or it hit the clock tower, which is interesting that they used the clock tower for the Back to the Future. I don't know if that was related to that sighting, but you never know why they're going to do things, but it's probably not related, but I just thought of that now. But so Comet Ison may have been 3 objects, because after Comet Ison was considered to be a sun-grazing comet, and that meant that it was going to go very close to the sun, and they said that it was going to actually, its orbit, the path that it was taking, which they determined by the previous path that it had been viewed at, and it was going to actually dive into the sun and disappear. But when it went behind the sun or into the sun, a very short time later, I don't know how long, it came out the other side, another spot, and it didn't come out, if I remember correctly, when I was examining this, it didn't come out with the same trajectory of which it entered, based on its path before that point. And then what they said, and there's actually talk about this, and they talk about how there was some evidence that it had survived the sun grazing, but it's in a very little part of the Wikipedia document that I looked at related to Ison, Comet Ison. And of course, if that's not brought to the public in any kind of meaningful way, then nobody knows about things like that. And then, because BP Earthwatch then continued to follow it, and he showed it that had become fainter, Comet Ison, after it came out of the sun, and even showed some kind of object behind it that was kind of silly, and who knows if this was actually put in there to distract us or what, but or if it was a next level thing, but it looked like a Pac-Man, a big Pac-Man that was following Comet Ison after it came out of the sun. So then Comet Ison was photographed as looking like 7 or so very faint objects flying in V formation. And that was when it wasn't depixelated.
What kind of shoes do you wear?
What kind of shoes do I wear? I'm not wearing shoes right now. But I'll show you my feet.
Don't show your feet.
I've got a hole in my sock, though.
Don't do that. What do you stop it?
I'm wearing these cool socks
that
we got in Roswell.
Oh my God.
And I don't really agree with this. It has a picture of an alien, and then it says, this planet sucks on it. Which I don't agree that the planet sucks. I mean, there's plenty of members of the human kingdom that suck.
You want to see my cat?
But what do they suck? They suck eggs.
You better watch it. Evie, come here. Come here. Kitty, 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 kitty.
Okay, so that's the kind of shoes I wear. No, I just wear tennis shoes.
Your
you know.
MySpace link in your bio doesn't work, and come here. Kitty,
I know.
kitty.
I don't keep that MySpace up anymore. I don't care about it.
Here's Evie. She's sorry. Sawyer's a little allergic, but there's Evie.
I can't show my feet, but you can show Evie.
I can show a cat. That's a little different.
So Bergerstein. Okay.
Sorry for your loss.
Bergerstein. Fascinating. Says
Poor Evie.
my late friend Ken Otto loved space. Yes, there's a lot of things to love about space. And sorry for your loss. What was my loss?
The group leaving.
Oh, for your loss.
I thought you might want to address that.
Yeah. I mean, I respect that you are expressing that. But I don't think of it as a loss because I don't think of any of them as being what they appear to be to most people, ordinary humans. I think they were extraordinary beings in human vehicles. And I have no doubt that human vehicles have more components to them than can be seen. That they have a program and like a database. It's even a genetic database that's associated with the cells. That is a mind database, and that mind database in the ancient terminology would have been called a spirit, or associated with the breath and the wind, because you couldn't see it, but you knew that it existed when you would feel it, on yourself. And that's evidence that things that are unseen can exist and have all kinds of, now science knows that, the atmosphere around us is filled with all kinds of bacterias and skin particles and, whatever is blowing in the wind or is in your house or, coming through the air conditioning vents and all that. There's a lot of stuff going on there. And so that's like evidence of things unseen. And what was the definition of the word faith? Evidence of things unseen. So you could say that people now, they have faith that there's things that are unseen, that exist. And they can be very sophisticated things. They can be software that's actually floating in the airwaves, looking for its hardware to express itself. And that's like network packets. And, object-oriented program. They called it OOPS when I was a programmer.
Oops.
And, OOPS was object-oriented programming. Before that, they didn't have such things as objects. And what an object was like the code plus the data was part of it. So depending on how much data you had for that code, determined what the capacity of that object was. And so if you had a huge database associated with it, because you learned how to encode data in such an encrypted form that it doesn't take up a lot of space, like in the airwaves, as a frequency object, then what we're seeing that humans create with computers and with remote communications is like a facsimile of what the next level above human, what used to be called the kingdom of God or the kingdom in the heavens, the literal heavens, the outer space areas of the universe, and that the creators are so technically advanced above, and this is way above space aliens also. Even though space aliens have some of the technology that they got from the next level in some way, shape, or form that could have even come from a previous civilization of humans making those spacecrafts. But all the ideas for making spacecrafts came from the next level. They're the masters of us, whether we like it or not, whether we know it or not, and to whatever degree we know it or not. And they're fully in charge of everything that's happening, but they give us free will. So they allow us to become as rotten as we want to become or as good as we want to become. And up to a certain point. And if the rottenness is interfering too much with the goodness that some individuals have growing in them, then they have ways of limiting that rottenness and helping those individuals that are considered to be the potential graduates into the next level real physical existence, working on laboratories that can be as big as planets inside and out, depending on what they're doing. And or they can be tiny, and they can be little, like modules, little objects that actually observe closely and that humans can't even see that exist, because humans, and they can communicate with us through radio wave bands that humans don't know how to decipher, because the next level gives the humans the ability to pull on the technologies that they want them to grow, so that people can more and more evolve to recognize that the next level is not an etheric, imaginary, superstitious existence, but it's actually highly technical, beyond what humans can even comprehend. So let's see, what's the third stone? Well, that was just a silly name I came up with, tailored off of Third Stone from the Sun from my days as a youth, when I was a Jimi Hendrix listener, and so he talked about third stone from the sun, meaning the third stone from the sun being the earth. So I called 3SPM stands for Third Stone People's Movement. And that was initially a band name, and it didn't become any more than me in the band. So I don't know if there was any people's movement associated with it, but then again, I'm continuing to put out thoughts, and we know from Tiando's teachings that everybody puts out thoughts. And so if your thoughts are from next level thoughts, then those thoughts are stronger. Not because we have them, we possess them and use them, but because next level truth and the frequency of their thoughts is a stronger thought. Yet it's also a subtle thought, and it's harder to actually recognize, because it doesn't like beat you over the head like human thoughts do, because the human thoughts are generated by the minds that were the individuals that broke away from the next level and went against them and put out their own thoughts, which is the other kind of mind that exists in this realm. There's two kinds of mind. There's next level mind, and by the old terminology, that would be called holy mind or Holy Spirit. And um, and uh, and human mind is um, a distortion of next level mind that can have facsimile appearances, but it's not true. It's not real because uh, it doesn't lead somebody to becoming more aware of the truth of this kingdom and this planet and the possibilities that were built into this existence in the human kingdom of actually graduating, like graduating out of high school into college, which would become a young member of the next level. And graduation uh, um, doesn't equal leaving your vehicle by your own hand. Because people do that all the time. They leave their vehicles for all different reasons, and some by their own hand. And it doesn't mean they're going to get anything. And actually, they're actually missing out on the opportunity of using these human vehicles and getting past all the difficulties that we can have in this world. Because that becomes a lesson ground for the building of stronger minds. Anybody that's conquered an addiction knows that as long as they stay, in control of their vehicle, their body, that they know they've got more going for them. They know they've got more power, in a sense, over their life. Because the substances and things like that and different behaviors can take humans over. And humans don't even know it's happening. And they think it's all normal a lot of times. And anyway, so we need our vehicles in order to learn lessons through them. And Tiendo talked about that. Well, T didn't. I don't know if she actually talked about it in a way that I can remember in that kind of a clarity, but Doe certainly did, and his students understood that because they had drawn in a lot of his mind by putting into motion the things that both T and Doe taught while T was in her vehicle, her body, that she used for the task that she did, and by actually putting into effect their disciplines of the mind that we had to instill upon ourselves. It doesn't. It's not a brainwashing technique. Like I said in the HBO docuseries, that they didn't brainwash us. They gave us the tools to wash our brains out ourselves, and we're washing out, which some of the record books of the previous older members that came, like Jesus, for instance, talked about cleaning out your house, and that was the same thing as starting off with the baptism meant repenting of your human behaviors, and that meant changing your human behaviors. See, those words were made into religious words in order to, and then they continued to be focused on by the people that are currently of a mind to be religious, and the people that have outgrown religion came out of it. They can experiment with everything. But when the ones that came out of it then see that terminology, then are challenged. They can see that terminology as an illusion, or they can see that terminology as a stepping stone. And when you look into the actual Greek meanings in many of the things that were talked about in what was called the record book of the New Testament, then you see some of the real meanings of things. And so if you look at the word repent, you'll see that it really means change your mind. And you're swapping out your mind. You're getting rid of the old mind and you're bringing in the new mind. The only new mind comes from the older members, and T and O are examples of all the new mind that was brought to this planet. It's not, well, I shouldn't say all the new mind, because a lot of their thoughts are in the ethers when they are here. And when they're in the ethers, anybody can pick up on them. And that's why you see, but they're stronger when they're actually in physical bodies on the planet.
Do you have your harmonica?
I have one in my bag.
Why don't you grab it and play a little?
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I could do that. I don't hardly ever play it.
But you used to.
But I used to. You can see me playing it on that video that's on the header of my page if you really want to tune into what I do with the harmonica. Some of what I do.
And, well, yeah, I'll have you answer that because most people probably can't hear me from over here.
Harmonica.
Remember, don't go too high.
I thought I fixed this harmonica, and now it's still got some clogs in it. I hate that. I hate that. I can't fix it now. It take too long. But I do see one piece of dirt in there that I didn't get out before. Another one. These things should be self-cleaning.
Yeah, they're right.
We need an AI to self-clean. That's what I do. Some of it. I do, a bunch of things I do. And yeah, I do some covers. I don't know, Ecstasy of Gold. Um, so, JT. Okay, I'll try to remember that. Um, are you in the path to observe the eclipse next month? Well, we're very close to it right now, and
Yeah,
I
we
think we'll
might
be a little closer, right?
Yeah,
When it's actually April 9th, I think, is the
April 8th.
8th. Right.
We'll be on the road.
Oh, right. So April 9th is when I think the comet was coming to perihelion, which, in my opinion, it is a significant event. I'm not expecting, anything to happen at that moment.
What comet? I don't think you talked about that yet.
Of the Pons Brooks. No, I haven't got to that yet. When I was kind
No,
of
I mean the comet that you're saying there's going to be a comet on April.
yeah, that's the Pond Brooks 12P comet.
Oh, I see. The devil comet they're calling
Yeah,
it.
they call it the Devil comet. I put it in the icon for this live stream, but I can show it to you since we're talking about it. Um, yeah, so that's it there. Now the reason why they're calling it the Devil's Comet is because whoever named it, I guess, uh, it's making this shape of looking like there's like two horns on a head. But I don't know if they pixelated it because it may look different than that. They're also calling it the Dragon Comet. And it's interesting, the terminology that people come up with sometimes and how the terminology can often be related to ideas that the next level associates with these events because whether this is a so-called natural event or not, the next level, I believe, knows it's happening and probably even planned it, and that people are drawn to it for various reasons, like they were drawn to other comets, and usually it's because they're like objects that really get the attention of humans, are the objects that are bigger and they're brighter and they show signs of getting brighter as they get closer to the sun, and they sometimes change directions, and sometimes they have different kinds of tails, and two tails, like Hale Bopp comet had three tails. So this one, I don't know I mean, that object Oyumama, I'm not sure how you say that the right way, but which I think means it's an American Indian term for traveler, something like that, journeyer or something like that. That they thought was like a cigar shape and long, cylindrical looking, and it didn't have a tail, and so they at first, because of the speed of it, they didn't think it was an asteroid because asteroids don't go as fast as comets. So when they saw this object, and it was also coming from the area around Pluto, which was interesting to hear the other day in a documentary I listened to about Oyumama, because it's coming back as well, apparently. I'm not sure when it's going to get close to here again, but they weren't expecting that either. And And there's a lot of things that happen that they're not expecting at all. And that blow their minds, actually. And all their theories have to get rewritten. But we don't hear much about that. You know, the news doesn't talk about that kind of stuff unless you just happen to. I mean, even if you listen to the science show that was on NPR, well, I used to listen to it on Vermont Public Radio when I lived in Vermont. They sometimes cover things, but if you listen to Coast, you'll get some pretty decent views sometimes on the comets, you know, that are different from the ordinary broadcasts, you know, in the mainstream media. You know, none of the mainstream media seem to really cover much about anything that, you know, they say little things about things that are happening in outer space, but and maybe that's enough, because the people that are interested, they're going to go find out when they hear little blurbs, which independent media provides a lot of. And the little documentary that I saw on Oh Your Mama the other day was new, and it was I guess provided by Neil deGrasse Tyson. Neil deGrasse. How do you say his name? deGrasse or?
I think it's DeGrasse.
DeGrasse.
I'm not 100%. Maybe
Tyson, right?
Yeah,
Which he's, you know, considered to be a well-known science proponent, you know, outer space theorist, and you know, someone that follows things and gives his opinion, and people respect his opinion, and I do too, you know. But there's a lot of things that he says that whenever I hear somebody saying, you know, something definitive about something in outer space, I mean, they can do it sometimes, but it shows me, you know, like if they say that the next time the comet's Hale Bopp's gonna come back is in 2,000 years, I don't.
It's actually a lot longer than that.
Yeah, is it?
Yeah.
I think, well, yeah, that's if it doesn't change speeds and doesn't change directions.
Well, it's like 50,000 years or something. Like, it's a ridiculous amount of time.
Yeah, some people say that, you know, that's the next time the next level is going to come back, as if the next level, you know, left for good. I mean, they did leave the surface of the planet with their crew that were here to bring updates to the previous record books about what the next level really is, and to strengthen their minds so that they could actually graduate into having a next level vehicle that's grown for them in their laboratories. But the human kingdom is a laboratory for the next level, so that human vehicles grow the way they do because the next level designed the animal kingdom and the human kingdom to have the same kind of reproductive systems. But the next level has more sophisticated systems to produce and design and make dense physical vehicles, while their souls are also physical, but of a more of a plasma-like physicality that can get very dense, and who knows how dense it can be. You know, the movie Cocoon might have shown what a next level soul body might look like, or maybe that's even a next level vehicle could look like that. You know, to where they were sitting around playing cards with people, and after they were born out of their cocoon, out of their egg, the way that was depicted. But that's like the chrysalis of the butterfly, the caterpillar becoming a butterfly, which is the analogy Tiendo first used, saying that there was actually a physical metamorphosis that took place in the human vehicle, so that even the human vehicle itself, the cells of the vehicle, were changing, and to a degree to where if they changed enough, they could leave this planet with their human vehicle, a changed over vehicle, like was demonstrated by the one that was called in the record books Jesus. Anyway, I'll go back to the chat. So I guess since let me bring up some more comets pictures. If you just joined me, you might want to listen to the earlier part of the broadcast, because I'm showing pictures of different comets. I already talked about Comet Ison, and on a previous comet live stream, I talked about Comet West and Comet Khoutek in 1973, which lined up with the beginning of Tiando's awakening in 1973, and that's when Comet Khoutek was coming to perihelion. And I'm not going to talk about the details of that, but you can read some about it in what's the document that's called 88 Update, the UFO2 and their crew, which can be found on the Heaven's Gate website. That was a website that was designed by Doe and his crew of students, that contains the data of the book that they put together. That's an anthology of their materials from 1975 on. And
it was cool. You'll have to repeat what I said because people can't hear me. But I when I was listening to the student exit statements, Sorority and Questody are first, but Sorority is directing people to the website too.
Oh, so Kathy just listened to the student exit videos that they made, and was, I think, played on CNN and things like that.
But it's on YouTube.
But it's on YouTube now on the Heaven's Gate database, right?
Yeah.
And which is a YouTube channel that's we don't know for a fact who actually runs it. But anyway, so but in that, I guess Sorority and Questody were
the first ones.
The first students that were giving their testimony of what they were about to do by exiting by their own hand. And Sorority talked about that you could, he referred to the Heaven's Gate website to understand more about what Tiando and crew were all about.
And to read the book.
And right, to read the book that was posted on the website. And there's at the bottom of the tab for the book, you can download the text of that in a zip file that is free. And the text of that includes the
88 update.
It includes the 88 update that I was talking about before, which Doe wrote and gives the history of when he met T. That is the true history, not the way that many people in different documentaries portray it as, you know, that he met T in an insane asylum and stuff like that, which is ridiculous. And
it's so easily disproved.
It's easily disproved, yes. Not that, you know, even if he had been in an asylum of some sort, that doesn't mean that he was, you know, people that go to hospitals for help with problems doesn't mean that they're terrible people.
They're actually to be commended.
Yeah, because if they're actually going to a hospital because they think they got something that they want to fix, right, they should be commended. Like Tiendo talked about how, uh, you know, people that were prosecuted and even had jail time uh, shouldn't be prohibited from holding public office because of the experience that they got from that experience and overcoming it. Like if they were involved in something that was negative or hurtful to somebody or whatever, if they overcame it and became a better person and wanted to, pay back society or whatever, they shouldn't be barred from ever. See, it's only humans that hold people to their mistakes and won't let them advance past their mistakes. Because next level members thrive on correcting their mistakes and making negatives into positives. Anyway, so 88 Update is one document in the book. And the Beyond Human series, which was a videotape series that Doe made in 1992 while I was present, and you can see my face in as a helper of Doe during a number of those videos. There's like
number 1 and 2 for sure.
Yeah, there's like 12. And they're each about an hour long. I think the last one's a little longer than that. Mm-hmm. And so the content of those videos, the transcripts actually are part of the Heaven's Gate book. Mm-hmm. So you can read it as well as listen to Doe talk about it, talk about everything he's talking about, and he talks about a lot of things. You get things from the horse. It's always better than...
get a good understanding of what they believe. That's, I think, the best spot to go.
Yes, to get an understanding of what they believe. I agree with Kathy, that's the best spot to go. As well as the book. But listening to Doe talk, there's things that aren't in the book that are in that Beyond Human series. Because the book is kind of like the bottom lines of everything.
Which are in the book, because the transcript is in the book.
Yeah, right. But he made those videos because he wanted to do the best job he could do of relating to people that this was a new story for. And so, which is different than the videos that you saw him make in 1996 and 1997. Yeah. That was for everybody on the planet. And he was talking to, all those that would condemn him and crucify him, like they did with him, 2,000 years ago when he was in that vehicle. Which brings up another little thing that I observed in the last few days was both Russell Brand, who I follow on a regular basis, because I think he is a pretty good truth teller, even though he's a comedian and he's got his ways that aren't necessarily, they're not necessarily next level ways. It doesn't matter to me, because what he's saying is wanting to tell the truth about things and stories and things that are in the media and whatever, then to me he's doing a service for the next level, because the next level wants people to know what is true and what's not true. And so I listen to him on a regular basis, and Kathy does also. Mm-hmm. And also sometimes I tune into Joe Rogan, but not that often. I don't listen to everything he does. I don't know why. I just don't feel drawn to all the time. but I have listened to many of his broadcasts, and the one he did that Russell Brand was commenting about and making a show about was that Joe Rogan said that the only thing that he could think of that would fix the current society was the return of Jesus Christ. Now, I didn't even know that Joe Rogan was inclined to that belief. And Russell Brand then chimed in during his broadcast that he feels the same way about Jesus. And I didn't really know, even though both of them probably have their own, perspectives of Jesus. Like Russell was actually talking about it as Christ consciousness coming back. The consciousness meaning peace. True love. Like Jesus talked about, love your neighbor as yourself, or do unto others as you'd want them to do to you, as the second greatest commandment. Commandment meaning instruction in order to grow in school. That's what he was talking about. He was presenting a school lesson that humans could develop by applying to themselves. And that wasn't the last lesson. And so I left messages. I posted both those broadcasts on my Facebook page, Sawyer Heaven's Gate. And I put a comment in there that gave a little bit of perspective from different parts of that record, the record book from 2,000 years ago, called, from the New Testament, from Jesus' words, because that's the part of the New Testament, the most valuable part of the New Testament is the words from Jesus. And that includes some of the book of Revelations. Anyway, but sorry, you're coloring there.
When you're rocking the whole house.
Yeah, so I included that in the comment, those thoughts, because I agree in a large part that that humans aren't going to save themselves from all these things that humans created, in the politics and the wars and the misinformation campaigns and the judgmentalism and the botched up Christianity and the botched up all the religions, how botched up they all are, to where you have people within the same religious beliefs, at each other's throats sometimes in different countries and, hating each other, and yet, and if they talk about anything that Jesus said, it's very unusual. And if they do, they make it figurative when it was meant to be literal, and they make it, like a metaphor.
Why isn't this showing up on your
Except instead of actually considering the obvious ways that the individual known as Jesus talked in stories sometimes to help get certain points across better.
This is really good.
And that he said when he came back he wouldn't be talking in stories anymore. And he'd be showing people directly about the Father. Like he wouldn't be, making up stories about the Father. All right. So, and if you look at T and Doe's information, you'll see that Doe talks about T as having been his older member. See, new terminology, not so much, hardly any religious terminology. He kept a little in there. That's why he called their group, after I left, we didn't have that name before I left, he called the group Heaven's Gate. because he did want to relate to the people that think in terms of believing in Jesus as the gate, which he was. But he doesn't remain the gate if we reject his return with updates. Then that name Jesus means next to nothing, and is a big distraction. But that doesn't mean you throw out everything he said. In fact, you can see everything he said. Okay, so I'm going to go to the chat room, and there's someone named Casey Payan. And he said he listened to tape 189 quite a bit. Tiendo talked about pulling and how subconsciously you'd know when you're on the right path. What was the class practicing to enhance their pulling? Well, following procedures. Wanting to do things the way a member of the next level would do them. Having that desire to not let anything out of your mouth that you didn't feel you would say to your older members. That you didn't feel would be something that members of the next level will see. The more you listen to the audio tapes, the more you will see how Tiendo conducted themselves, how they related to one another, how they related to students, and that's the way they were all the time.
So you would want to be asking yourself as you're going about your daily tasks, am I doing this like my older member would do this?
Right. So going through your ordinary tasks every day, you would be saying, how would my older member do this? And you would know how your older member would do a lot of things because the older members, through the time period that we call the classroom, were operating with us in all our day-to-day activities and giving us procedures, we call them, and instructions, but procedures on how to do things when they would come up, when they felt like they needed to give us a procedure. They didn't just sit down and think up, oh, let's see, we can make them do this and this and this and this and this. They don't make anybody do anything.
Blend tacos.
Right, like one, that didn't become a procedure because that was an option.
That's right.
Like we were talking about it today, we had some food today and we thought about, I wonder what it would be like to blend this food, and it was kind of sickening to us to think about that way, and it reminded me of when I was in the classroom and part of our diet were these open-face tostadas, which was like a corn tortilla, crispy corn tortilla, then with pinto beans spread, mashed and spread over it, and then lettuce, grated cheese, and then some kind of salsa. And so we would eat from 3 to 5 of those for a dinner, once a week maybe. And so Doe at one point said, it was 1987, I remember, I think, it might have been 86, but I think it was 87 because we were in the house of Boulder Canyon in Colorado, on Lost Angel Road.
Oh.
And he said, sometimes you might want to try blending the tacos, those open-faced tostadas. And I remember thinking, ooh, I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know if I ever tried it. I think I remember Junodi trying it, maybe more than once. And, blending tacos, and then just, drinking it like a smoothie. Because it had a little thickness to it. because she didn't add water or anything to it. And yeah, it sounds kind of gross, I think, but then, see, the fact that I don't think I tried it was my choice, but I think a higher choice would have been that if Doe gave that to us as an option, if we wanted to do everything the way a member of the next level would do it, then we probably would try to do it at least once. And we got that lesson a number of times when they would give us something that was optional. Then there were things that they gave us that were not optional, like a certain amount of sleep every night. We had to get a minimum of patterns, but we had all kinds of procedures that, that had flexibility in them sometimes, and sometimes they didn't have any flexibility on them. Like one of them was when you were filling up gas for the car, when it clicks off, like when the pump clicks off, like some of them do, most of them do, then you can just put it on again until it clicks off again, and that's all you would do. You wouldn't try to fill it up all the way, because a lot of times you can get another gallon in there sometimes. But so that was a procedure that wasn't optional. And like another procedure was when you were driving down the road on the highway, you could go 2 to 3 miles above the speed limit. And so the option was 2 or 3 miles above the speed limit. 4 miles above the speed limit would have been braking procedures and not doing things the way our older members gave us to do. It didn't mean that everything they gave us to do was going to be some kind of highfalutin, philosophical kind of idea. In fact, it was very mundane. And that was boring to some people. And some of those people left the group because it just wasn't exciting enough for them. And that was a way of separating those that had the stuff to stay in the program. Because Tiendo knew that the next level would be increasing the difficulty of staying in the classroom so that the minds could continue to gain strength by dealing with the difficulties. And humans are being given that now. I think we're increasingly being given more difficult situations in every facet of life.
Yeah, sure does seem like it.
Yeah, it seems like it. And I think that's for our benefit. And yes, some people are going to freak out. And there's going to be a certain amount of havoc. Like, we were watching the other day, the zombie show. Daryl Dixon. And he was in France, and he met this woman that was a nun at the time, and it showed a little bit of her past when the zombie outbreak started in Paris area. And they showed all kinds of havoc was happening, and people were like running around the subway car and attacking each other, and and people were dying, and they were becoming zombies, and so they were chasing after people to eat them and all that, and it's like today. I just got this strong perspective that that the pressure is being escalated on everybody on the planet. And the next level does that to help us gain strength. Okay? But the way they do it, as far as I know, they do it in a number of different ways, and I don't know all the ways that they might do it. But they don't give us more than we can handle. Even if we lose our vehicles, the next level knows how to save that spirit or soul, depending on what the composition of the mind in the vehicle, they can save that essence of the human for a future opportunity. So nothing is lost by the loss of a vehicle. That doesn't mean that we want to get rid of our vehicles. Like some people talk to me about that. They say, "Oh yes, it's great. When we die, we're going to be free, and we're going to be able to travel around the planets and everything." And even if they're able to actually float around among the planets, that's going to be exciting. For how long? Because but if that's all they want from life, then they're probably not going to be somebody that is a prospective candidate for next level membership. Because next level members want to do things, and a spirit can't do anything, or maybe float around, okay, and influence other people. They can do that, but and they can sometimes help people, by being like a guardian angel, alert somebody to a problem that can actually benefit from it. Because the next level uses everything in the human kingdom. They can even use the space aliens for positives, to convert the negatives into positives. That's the process. And so, like, let's say, back to Casey Payan's thought about pulling. Let's say you were in the classroom and Tiendo said something that was challenging for you to accept. You could linger on it, or you could ask for clarification so that you can understand it better, and then you could throw out any of the negatives that might come with not understanding something. Because I know this happened to me when Doe first brought up, we watched the Star Trek movie that talked about the Borg, and Doe said at the end of the movie that this was like, in a sense, the Borg were like the next level. And what he meant by that was the way that they were all connected to one source, that they had to keep on returning to that source to get recharged. And that they never gave up on their task, and they appeared to be like a hive mind, but each one of them was actually an individual, and they didn't, they weren't out to destroy anybody like the Borg were, in that depiction in the Star Trek series, but the ideas of how they operated was an example, a little bit of an analogy. So when I heard him say that, I thought, ooh, I'm not sure I like that in my head. I didn't even actually have those words in my head, because I don't think I had many doubts that were conscious, but I certainly had doubts that were subconscious. And I didn't recognize them until Tiendo said something that triggered it. And that's why one never knows whether they've really overcome something or not, because they never know what's going to be the next trigger. So it's another part of the pulling is to be always on your guard for the things that can drag you down. So let's say you were an alcoholic in the past, and you would be on your guard about putting yourself in any circumstance that could stimulate that desire again, even though you might feel pretty confident about your having overcome that desire. You don't want to drop your guard. And it's not stressful to keep that guard up, but so let's say the first sign that you see of that thought, you have the ability to actually cut it off, so you don't even hear the whole sentence, you don't even hear the whole words that are associated with that desire in your head,
or the feeling.
As soon as you get that first whiff of it and you cut it off, then you're building your mind stronger and stronger in the way that a member of the next level needs that kind of control. Because that kind of control is a very silent strength. It's a very real strength. And that's the kind of strength that it takes to actually operate a next level grown physical body.
And it's an opportunity to show once again your commitment to the next level.
It's an opportunity to show your commitment to the next level. Every time you reject the things that bring you back into your human condition. And judgments, judgments of others is another big thing that some people do all the time. Usually every live stream, somebody comes on here and says something that's very judgmental of myself and Kathy and other people, and they can't judge us. They can think they can. And judgment isn't just a matter of like saying, oh, you're going to hell and stuff like that. That's a type of judgment. But like the one that was called Jesus talked about, he said it's when you measure somebody else. In other words, when you're putting somebody down, you're measuring them as being lesser than you in some way. And what Jesus said, that the way that you measure others, you will be measured. In other words, by doing that, you're actually showing the next level what you are, what you've become. By doing that to people. That's why it said that the members of the next level, they have no guile. They have no deceit. They don't do things, to manipulate people or what was it?
To trip you up.
To trip people up. Now, Tiendo knew that a lot of times they were giving us procedures and things to think about that were going to test us. Can we overcome the negative forces that are prone to attack different individuals according to the person's strain of mind that they're attached to, and according to their upbringing and the mind that they got from their vehicle's parentage, and the caregivers that took care of them when they were babies until youth, and then society, and everything that went into each human vehicle. Everyone's got pretty much the same characteristics in different degrees, and some of them individuals have overcome enough to where that doesn't bother them, but to other individuals, they can be very bothered by those same characteristics that the other person isn't bothered by. And that doesn't make one person better than another, except in that one department. And that doesn't mean that the person that's better than you in one department isn't lesser than you in another department. And in all those cases, we can't determine where anybody else is at. We can determine the behaviors and ways that we do not want to have, and it behooves us to separate ourselves from individuals that have behaviors that challenge us, because we don't need to put ourselves in a challenging position. We don't need to like we wouldn't want to say to the lower forces, I can handle anything you can give me. That would be setting yourself up for a fall, because the lower forces can be pretty powerful. And I did that, actually. And that's one of the reasons why I didn't stay in the classroom, even though I didn't realize it at the time. But I was a little too pleased with myself. And so I asked T one time, when T was outside her vehicle, which Doe gave us procedure to experiment with a little bit and report to him what we experienced from trying to ask T a question. I asked T how I could have a task like Doe has. I wanted to do a task like Doe was doing. And that was my vehicle's ego coming in, thinking that I had already accomplished everything that I needed to accomplish with my own package of human characteristics. And I hadn't. And all of a sudden, I wasn't capable of keeping out thoughts that for 18 years I was capable of keeping out. Because I think T sent me one of the lower force members, one of the space alien souls, to actually try to influence me. And I felt like I couldn't even fight it. I didn't even want to ask for help. It was so strong. So anyway, I'll go back to the chat. I hope I gave you a decent picture on pulling, but
I think you did.
but one more thing on it though. On 189, they were talking about it, I think, as pulling changing, because the students had graduated, not the classroom entirely, but what I believe they said, and Kathy can correct me if I'm wrong, because she's listened to that tape probably 2 or 3 times by now, and they were saying that what pulling had become was continuing with pulling on how next level members would do this and that, but it was expanded. The next level was adding tasks that that the original students from 1975 didn't initially have, which was to deposit thoughts. I mean, we were always depositing thoughts into the human kingdom, which we're doing it right now, and everybody is potentially influencing other people with their own thoughts, and so, but the thoughts we want to deposit are the next level mind thoughts, which the only way you're going to find those thoughts is by studying their material, because they're not with us incarnate right now. But they left us so much material that can give us so many examples of how they were teaching more members of the next level activity, ways of thinking and acting, that nobody is really missing anything. Sure, we can understand that we would love to be with T and Do, but that'll happen in due time, because these vehicles aren't our last stop in growing to eventually potentially graduate. It's always a choice. Every day it's a choice to grow. And but I remember, what was it that happened? I just had it on the tip of my tongue. An example. Well, I'll just go back to the chat. The god of wristwatch collecting. Where can I buy Little Green on vinyl record? I don't know of any vinyl recordings of. I'm not sure what you're talking about by Little Green.
That's the band that you're right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm part of a band that I haven't played with in 2 years, or almost that. But but they still consider me a member of the band. And the name from Little Green came from, uh, my thoughts about uh, the Little Green in the Transfiguration Diet book, which was referring to Dr. Little Green, who was being depicted as dough in the Transfiguration Diet book. So I don't know of a vinyl record. I know they just did a CD release, and I think they still probably have a Facebook page under the name Little Green. I don't know if it's one word or two words, but if you go to it and you see postings, the members are, there's actually a Little Green Reverb Nation page also, where recordings are on that. But I don't know of a vinyl record. Zach says, are there things that would instantly disqualify someone from being next level? Well, I don't think as long as somebody is in a vehicle that the next level would disqualify someone from being able to grow past their negative characteristics or their human characteristics into becoming eventually a member of the next level. I think the ones that fell away and dropped out of the whatever classroom they were in at the time and whatever service they had, whatever elementary service they had as watchers of humans on the planet, the ones known as the fallen angels or the Luciferian space alien fallen angels, is a phrase that identifies souls. Not what the vehicles are irrelevant in a sense because they're hybridized from human material and genetic material and whatever genetic material they had on their spacecrafts or from themselves. But those individuals, many of them have judged themselves already. So what happens is we disqualify ourselves. The next level doesn't have to disqualify us. They just recycle us when we become nothing. So they know when something can still grow in people. And that's why they keep on giving us opportunities over and over again. That's why we see these documentaries coming out all the time. You can think it's because humans are interested in the story, right? Or they want to make it look into it like an evil story so that people don't pay attention to it, right? But see, even that, the truth comes through that to some people. And some people watch that story and they think, there's got to be more to this story. Why are they trying so hard to make it negative? And I don't hear anything negative in it except that they left their bodies by their own hand and they were happy to do it. So, if people leave it at that, that's their option. But you never can tell when somebody's going to hear that story come up again somehow and think, you know what, maybe I should look into that a little more and see if there's any more to this. Because there's lots of interesting thoughts in this story that, make sense to me. And that's Kathy's testimony, that brought her to the Beyond Human series. And she watched Doe talking in the Beyond Human series and she felt like she was kind of shocked, but that she believed everything he was saying. Not that she necessarily understood everything he was saying, but she just had a sense that he knew what he was talking about.
I recognized him.
She recognized Doe. And when I say that, it doesn't mean she recognized his vehicle, but even the vehicle she could have recognized. Because the vehicle becomes the, vehicle is a good word for it.
The vessel?
The vessel, the instrument of the mind, and the vehicle even changes to accommodate the mind that's coming into it. So the vehicle itself becomes good. I mean, good enough. You know, it's always going to be a human vehicle that's going to have a certain amount of programs playing, but a member of the next level that's growing using that vehicle learns how to identify those human thoughts in a jiffy and block them out because they don't want to have that vibration anymore. They don't want to be in elementary school anymore or even high school anymore. They want to get on to the more in-depth college classes and mastering classes in the development of evolutionarily development of life that has to go beyond the planet, beyond the surface of the planet, beyond the human condition, the human evolutionary condition. It's meant to go beyond it as an option, as an opportunity, as part of the design. And God, a wristwatch, says, is playing practical pranks acceptable? I don't know. If it puts somebody down, I don't think so.
But if it makes somebody think?
If it what?
If it makes somebody think a different way.
If it influences someone to think in a slightly different way, I wouldn't call it a prank then. I would call it well, I mean, see, the next level has humor, but it's not the same kind of humor that a lot of humans have. And the way that Tiendo first talked about that is when they were asked in 1975 whether there was fun in the next level. And their answer was, yes, there is fun in the next level, but it's not the same kind of fun as humans have. Just like horses can be having fun, but it's not necessarily the same kind of fun that a human would think was fun. Even though humans do run around together in the fields and stuff, right, playing games, and that's fun for them. And Tiendo had different opinions about different sports, and some of them they thought were kind of worthless to growth, except for the discipline in them. But there's still options, and it's not like the humans are doing something wrong by using those options. Everything in the human kingdom is opportunity. And the object really is to get into the things in the human kingdom and then get out of them. So, so I wouldn't say that you wouldn't do pranks in the next level. And in the classroom, we didn't do pranks. So I would say that if somebody was doing a prank on somebody in the next level classroom, that would not be acceptable. And if they wanted to continue to do that, then they would be asked to leave. And if they wanted to continue to do that. Because the next level don't trick people. They don't even trick us. I can't think of a way that they tricked us into believing in something. You know, that's the whole carrot and stick idea, right? That they say that cults do that. They tell you that you're gonna go to outer space on a spacecraft, and that becomes the carrot. And then the way that you're gonna get there is by I don't know, what is it? What is it? Learning to use the stick, or
Well, the way you're going to get there is by killing yourself.
right? Some people could think that you're going to get there by killing yourself, right? Which doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. Uh, um, T and Do were very much in charge of allowing those individuals to leave the way they did. And individuals that weren't genuinely ready for that step, in their own individual heartfelt way, the next level found ways of pushing them out of the classroom.
Talk about Rio.
Yeah, Rio is an example of that. He wasn't, as he says in his book, he was only staying in the classroom to the last minute. You know, up until, because there was, when Rio joined, Do was talking about leaving by our own hand, and that was 1994. I was there when we were talking about it a number of times as a group, and then who knows what people were talking about or what Do was talking about with individuals that might question whether they were on board to that degree. But some left whenever Do would talk about it because they knew that they weren't in it for that. That's the way one person said it. I think it was Arodi. Said, I'm not in this, I'm not here for leaving my vehicle behind. Even though right from the beginning, everybody knew that the object was to get on a spacecraft and leave this planet. And that we didn't know, we thought that, or would do it with our vehicles, but it was 1978 when T and Do started talking. Well, actually 76 when T and Do were talking about. Well, they said right from the beginning, you don't have to die to go to the next level. And I remember when I was thinking about all that in 1975, I thought I was going to die, my vehicle. Because I had this martyr complex, which was a complex. It wasn't a positive. Next level members don't want to lose their vehicles. They want to stay in their vehicles as long as they feel like their older members want them to perform tasks with those vehicles, gain strength with those vehicles. Because all of that can be of great service to the next level and great service to those that are coming up from the human kingdom. And so I had to tell my vehicle, no, you're going to go on board the spacecraft with your vehicle. So that was like a lesson for me to accept that and discard any thoughts of martyrdom as making me into something special. You know, because I thought that from a young age of this vehicle, when I would watch Spartacus, you know, and then all those people stepped forward and said to their opposition that wanted to kill Spartacus, their leader, some 300 soldiers, they each stepped forward and said, I'm Spartacus, I'm Spartacus. So they hung them all on the crosses or whatever they did. That's the way it was depicted in the story anyway. And I thought that was like being a hero, and that was like the ultimate action that could be taken, to die for the cause. And it's not that that was a wrong way of thinking, because like Jesus said, you know, you have to give, the number one commandment was to give all your heart, love, all your mind, your thoughts, all your soul, your perspectives of the kingdom of God in the future, and all your strength to the kingdom of God, okay, to your God, to your older member. So they told us right, I mean, that was even talked about in the Moses camp, which was the previous lesson ground that Doe was in the vehicle named Moses performing, which was like an elementary school compared to the Jesus time, which was high school, and like an equivalent kind of thing. And so that's why when people refer to the lessons in the Moses camp and say, look how stupid these are, or how crude these are. First of all, we don't know if everything. We know that there are distortions in those materials. So we don't know exactly which things were distorted and which things weren't. Because the lower forces always have an interest in distorting what the older members bring during any classroom period on the earth. And and that's what they did as soon as Jesus left. They had Paul, who thought that Jesus showed himself to him, when it's pretty ridiculous, but it shows that they were not next level members coming to him, because they didn't give him a choice. They showed, however they did it, I don't know if the story was accurate the way that Paul talked about it, and it was written down by Luke, I understand, in the book of Acts, was that he was stricken blind or something, right? And so, what? Saul, yeah.
He was Saul first before he was Paul.
Right. And he was Saul. He said, Saul, why do you persecute me? Because Saul was kind of a leader of some degree, who was seeing to the murder of the one that was called Stephen. And people were laying Stephen's clothes at Saul's feet. And he was banishing people from Jerusalem that were known to be followers of Jesus. So why would the next level shock him into thinking differently, when that's a characteristic that the lower forces do? They shock people into belief. And you see that like with all kinds of cult leaders, that you see the bad behavior that they have. Jim Jones, I guess Charlie Manson to some degree. You see like Mother, what was her name? Mother God.
Yeah.
You see that they have little pieces of something interesting about them, way of talking, charisma, things that they do that people are attracted to, and yet they start saying things and having people do things to serve them that are completely bizarre in terms of being things that a true member of the next level would do. Like the one that was called Mother God, she was drinking like a fish alcohol, and she killed herself by drinking alcohol to death. Liver disease, and what was that? And colloidal silver, but it seems like the alcohol was the biggest part of that. I don't know, maybe together though, combinations. But she had a few thoughts that were interesting, that could have come from the next level, but yeah, she was taking on humanity's negativity, which is exactly what Doe said did in or ended up causing the disease in T's eye and then liver, to where the eye had to be removed, and then 2 years later her vehicle died, and she didn't want to try to do anything to stop that from happening because she felt that it was time to go, and to leave the task for Doe to complete. With T at a distance, which is what the situation was when Doe was doing the task of Jesus. Anyway, but and it is a fact that negativity can do us harm, our vehicles, from people. If we don't learn to block it, it brings you down. I know Kathy and I both suffer from that sometimes. When things are happening to us that are beyond our control, and it feels like, gosh, we can't get ahead, whether it's financial or where we're living, or we lose the place where we're able to live, and things happen. Or the car breaks down and we don't have any way to get a better car, or even fix it necessarily, and we make our money to have food by working, and we need the car to work, and so things can, like, we got hit with all those things, and the lawsuit, a ruling from the judge that is requiring a lot of work from me to file certain things, and that also, the stress of that and everything else becomes stressful for both Kathy and I to deal with, to where we end up snapping at each other a little bit here and there, and just being unable, just. We got to say to each other, just stop. I don't want to talk about that right now. I can't really handle it right now. And we need to each grow to stop and not put somebody else to the test. Just because we think we can handle something, we probably need to, take a break and let our minds relax and get some rest, because that's the other thing that happens when you have those stresses. Sometimes your rest can be affected and you're not getting good sleep, and that can lead to making mistakes and breaking things, or driving in a way that can be dangerous, and all things, the problems can spiral. And like I was saying before, that's negativity that's coming to us from the world. It's we're part of it, and it's coming to us to push our buttons, whatever buttons we have. Everybody's got some potentially different buttons. I mean, they're all basically the same. There's only so many buttons really to push, but maybe there's 5 or something like that. But they come in different shapes and sizes, and so a button can get pushed, and it may have come to us in a slightly different way than it ever did before, to where all of a sudden we find ourselves snapping at somebody, or just being mad and throwing something across the room, huh? No, we don't do that, but people do that. I have done that in my life.
Oh yeah, I've done it too.
Yeah, Kathy says she's done it too. But those are all opportunities to outgrow the primitive behavior, because members of the next level don't do things like that. They have a problem, they suffer from the problem, and dealing with the problem and trying to do the right thing that their older members are the judge of. and that their older members don't reprimand them or put them down, but the older members might not give them the same task to do if they don't show that they're ready to do that task. And so somebody might suffer because of that. But that suffering then, if they are truly striving to be like a member of the next level, they're going to convert that suffering at some point into a positive forward motion. So let's say you lose somebody that's close to you in your life, and you're suffering because of it, of their absence. Well, that's understandable. But, if you let that continue and continue and continue to where you're incapable of doing anything, like we saw a movie where that happened to somebody and he was just depressed for a long period of time.
That was Don't Worry, Darling. Don't give them the ending.
Oh yeah, it was the movie Don't Worry, Darling.
It's a good damn movie.
It's a good movie, yeah.
So don't spoil it.
So I'm not going to spoil it.
But he's suffering, so he makes a very drastic...
Yeah, he makes a very drastic choice. And
involves other people.
That involves other people, right.
But didn't have a choice.
Right. Which is not a behavior of the next level. The next level does never manipulates people. Now, what I'm talking about is like, does the next level put us to the test? Yes. But they give us opportunities to pass the test. I'll give you some examples. Let's say you live in an area that's prone to violent storms that destroy people's houses, hurricanes. Let's say the Gulf of Mexico, right on the water, very close to the water. And Katrina came over there and wiped a whole bunch of things out, and a whole bunch of people lost their livelihoods and some people lost their lives and loved ones' lives. And the next level is doing things like that to help those individuals, those minds in those vehicles, recognize that this might not be a good place to live. So maybe I don't want to rebuild here. Maybe I should try to sell my property here to somebody that does want to rebuild. Because there's always probably somebody that's going to rebuild and get it knocked down again and then rebuild because they have insurance and all that. But you're taking a chance that you or your loved ones are going to get killed from staying in an area that has constant hurricanes or earthquakes or volcanic eruptions. So the next level does stimulate growth by natural catastrophes, and to some degree also which I don't understand how necessarily this happens, but the wars are a big stimulus of growth opportunities for the souls and spirits. And the people that migrate away from those war-torn areas quickly when the wars start and don't want to just hang around because they had a business there and they think it's going to be over soon, and so they just want to wait it out, and then it goes on for years and years and years, and everybody is dead around them and or left the area, and then they lose their vehicle themselves maybe. That's a lesson. Now, it doesn't mean it's lost. Even that person that stayed behind doesn't mean that they're condemned to anything.
Gaza Strip's a perfect example of that.
What was that?
Gaza is a perfect example.
The Gaza Strip is a perfect example of that. So those people that are suffering in Gaza, it's not that anyone, right? But a lot of them, whatever. What I was trying to say is that even if they stayed, doesn't mean they're going to hell. Doesn't mean that they're bad people. It means that they're getting a harder lesson. And if they lose their vehicle, then the other people around them are getting a harder lesson to not fight fire with fire. Because, like Nelson Mandela said, eye for an eye eventually leaves everybody blind. Now, that was, eye for an eye was like a elementary school lesson program in the Moses camp classroom. But in the Jesus classroom, it was, find agreement with your adversary so you don't end up in jail. Don't try to try to change, become a revolutionary and take up weapons against the government and stuff like that. The next level wouldn't have us do that. They wouldn't even have us make weapons to be used on people to kill them. That's all lower forces. That's all space alien influenced human behavior. And the people it doesn't mean that if you were in the military and you were doing that and you did that, doesn't mean you're going to hell, doesn't mean anything like that. Because everything in the human kingdom is forgivable by the next level. But the problem is that certain pathways that are going against the next level makes it so that the individual or the soul loses next level perspectives more and more the more they participate in those human behaviors and believe in those human behaviors. And so they actually get to the point to where they don't recognize the next level exists. And I'm not saying that atheists are in that category. Some are, but some religionists are also in that category of not really knowing what the real next level that exists is about. And they're clinging to the superstitious and the cruder, more primitive parts of the record books that talked about the relationship of the next level with the human kingdom. And then anybody that comes and brings updates, they actually want to talk louder than them, and they want to put them down, and say that they're New Age, they're New Age Christians because they talk about astrology, the evil astrology. I'm not saying astrology is evil, but it's not necessarily the way that people use it isn't necessarily the way the next level would have people use it. The way that we used it in the classroom, Tiendo said it was a game. And we weren't supposed to do our own charts or other people's natal charts because we were all choosing to leave the world behind. And so whatever influences could be recognized from the charts, because there are influences from different planets and things, don't apply to us anymore. Now, I say us, but I don't know how those things apply to me now because I'm not, living. I am to some degree, living by the ways of the classroom, but that classroom doesn't exist anymore. And for whatever reasons, there's all kinds of characteristics that I have opportunities to overcome that I didn't overcome while I was in the classroom. And I felt the other day that I had some indication that uh, uh, kind of influencing me, testing me to the degree that I was tested, and knowing that I might not pass the test and therefore be in the human kingdom was an experiment that and I guess as long as I continue to want to serve Tea and Dough and grow to conquer my various human characteristics that T told me would keep me off the spacecraft, like a little too pleased with self and likes to be seen as something special and sarcastic with humans. Those characteristics are my biggest boogaboos to grow past and to recognize that those are human behaviors. So, yeah, I'm going to wrap it up. I'm getting tired. What are your opinions on the gays?
The gays.
Do you believe in Christianity? Are you planning to go to the next level? Were you in Heaven's Gate when the other members went to the next level? Do you believe in Heaven's Gate? Did you plan on becoming a celebrity? No. Start with that one.
Yes.
Do people ever stop you on the street because they recognize you from the HBO documentary? Not really.
People do double takes.
Sometimes I see people doing a double take, and I get the thought that they recognize me from something. I don't know if they necessarily connect it until later. There's been a few that recognized me. Is playing, okay, I already said that. So let me get through these quickly. I might not do them as much justice as I could. So do you believe in Heaven's Gate? I believe that Dough is the gate. And the way that we can go through that gate is by adopting, to the best that we can, all the behaviors and ways that are listed in the Heaven's Gate book as the major and minor offenses, or lesser. Major and lesser offenses is the way he said it. They're not minor, they're lesser. And anyway, so that's a big chore, by the way. And it's not something that can happen overnight. If somebody thinks that nothing applies to them, well, they just haven't really been faced with certain things and they haven't seen themselves in an objective way. Because they always give us more than we can. They always give us plenty to work on.
Remember,
because
you were going to be brief.
Yeah. Are you planning to go to the next level? I don't think about that. I think about trying to be of service to Dough and T. And what if they I suspect that Dough told me that he wasn't throwing me away because I wasn't measuring up to the lesson program at the time, and I chose to leave. So because he said that, I think that the soul that's associated with this vehicle will probably be saved on ice. Not literal ice, but like in a storage or some kind of capacity of being in the next level's keeping, and then brought back to have another lesson opportunity, because the next level doesn't waste anything. Do you believe in Christianity? I believe in what Jesus taught, but I believe in what Jesus taught relative to the lesson plan 2,000 years ago, which has advanced to the lesson plan that T and Do brought. What are your opinions on the gays? Only that in the next level there is no sexuality. They don't have the plumbing, the body parts for reproduction or for sexuality, and sexuality can be an addiction. I mean, different degrees of addiction to it. And just like religion can be an addiction of different degrees. Anyway, so individuals that are attracted to their chemistry is such that they feel an attraction to vehicles that are determined to be of the same biological chromosome makeup, gender, even though a lot of this is being turned on its heels. Do felt like maybe, I'm going to say it that way because I think it's not automatic, showing that they're overcoming gender consciousness. Because, what, I know from my own experience that at first when I would hear about or see a male like kissing another male, it was kind of like my vehicle's response was kind of disgusting. Okay? But then when I saw more of it on TV and stuff, I thought, okay, well, it's not any more disgusting than anything. Any kind of sexuality can be disgusting, right? So, I think that was my progression in overcoming gender consciousness. Because the next level doesn't have any gender. They don't have males and females. Even talks about that in the record book. Anyway, and so we have to lose our gender consciousness. So we don't judge somebody or measure somebody by the gender that they're in. And Ireland's dealing with this right now, to where they're going to amend the Constitution to say that females, their number one task isn't to stay in the home and raise the kids and all that. That they can do anything they want to do. I don't know why they need to do that, but in a sense, I think it's probably a sign of growth. Like the women's rights movement that started in the mid-1800s was stimulated by next level mind being in this atmosphere, as well as the racial consciousness is another thing that they don't have in the next level, and that needs to be overcome, so that we don't judge somebody on the color of their skin or their ethnicity, or their wealth, or poorness, financially, or their intelligence, like whether they have degrees or not, because there's like or whether they were in jail or not, or whether they're disabled or not. None of those things are criteria to judge anybody by, and everybody should be treated equally by what they do. They're responsible for what we do. But those that are attracted to the same kind of vehicle as others, talking about LGBTQ or gays in the old terminology, even if they have overcome a large portion of their gender consciousness, if they're still sexual, then they haven't overcome their sexual consciousness. Because next level members don't have sex. It's not a moral thing. They just don't reproduce. So they're not interested in each other like that. All right, I'm going to move on. KSAIAJFS. You seem like a pretty talented musician. Have you ever heard Flying Saucer Safari by the Suburban Lawns? No, I can't say I have. Maybe I'll, you know, do a Google search of them just for the curiosity of it. Flying Saucer Safari. Suburban Lawns. Okay, folks. I think I'm talking till I'm blue in the face. Not really. But out of breath, so I'm glad we're able to get together again. So good night.